Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. For High Tempo, we were talking a little bit of the Olympics, since I've seen some ads for them, surprisingly, in the NFL playoffs. We also talked a little bit about the USFL and the XFL, which hasn't been really promoting themselves, and the pre-show. So if you want to hear that, go to patreon.com/Southbound Sports, and you can get the full live show there. We'll kick it off. Do you have anything else for High Tempo? I haven't really seen it much on other sports, but I'm focused in on football. Let's see if you have anything before we get rolling.
Yeah, as far as football stuff, there's been a little bit of a change this off season. The administration at my school decided to make a change and opened up my position, and they elected to hire another guy. So going forward, I will no longer be the head coach at Claysburg. So big changes on the horizon.
Well, to be fair to you, they didn't flat out fire you, which I thought was odd. And you didn't reapply. And if you think I'm lying, you can read the Altoona Mirror article where it specifically said that you didn't reapply. But I thought it was odd that they would open it and then ask you to reapply. That's weird, right?
Yeah, and with a lot of contracts in the area, they run on a year-by-year basis. And so in years past, it's been a year-by-year. It was the same contract, but it was just we had conversations, and it was very, very open, and it was like, these are things that you may want to work on, and we're good to go. Just roll forward. And this year it was like, well, we may open it, we may not. We're not quite sure yet. And then in December, I found out that they're like, yeah, we definitely are going to open it, but you're welcome to apply. And just for personal reasons, I started looking at my family and the time that I was spending away, and it was like, honestly, if I do reapply and I jump through all the hoops and I go through all this, how much time am I going to be missing where, my son's now getting to the age where he can potentially start getting into football. And it's like, do I really want to miss out on an opportunity to coach him or to coach my nephews? And I wouldn't, I think I would end up being more spiteful in the end if things were going sideways and I'm missing out on family time. Look, it's like, if we're not doing the things that we need to do, why am I even here? And I think, I look at a lot of stuff like this as it's a blessing in disguise, and things happen for a reason. And, I'm not going to argue one way or the other, but the administration decided to go in another way. And in the long run, it may, time will tell if it was the right decision or not. And
I don't think a lot of people realize they are like year-by-year contracts. Have you had to formally apply again in the past? Or is it just like a given? Kind of.
No, in years past, it was just like we had a conversation and it was you're back. Like if you want it, we're just gonna approve you to continue, and that was the way that we handled things in the past. And I can't speak for other programs if that's the way that things were done, but it was a little bit of a gut punch over the holidays, knowing that a lot of the stuff that I'd worked for was potentially going to be pulled away. And as I talked with family and looked at long term, what's the right move for us, I found it harder to truly be all in.
And I think that's just goes for any high school coaching position. I've been very vocal about it on the show where you hear about, hey, high schools are having trouble getting like programs to stay. They have to make all these cuts. And a lot of times, A, they're not paying the coaches well. And B, if it is like a year to year, like a lot of teacher contracts too are year to year. And so it's almost like, hey, we expect you to be back. well, will you go ahead and give me like a 5-year contract? Oh, no, we can't do that. Like, we want you to come back, but we're still going to have to negotiate it each year. And then at that point, it's kind of like, hey, why are all these teachers leaving, or why are all these coaches leaving? It's like, you don't respect them. You hear a lot of people talk about coaching salaries in like the NFL and college and how ridiculous they are. I'm going to talk about Harbaugh soon. But at some point, you need that stability for your family because, like you're saying, you have family members. You can't go in and, like, if they try to make you make concessions each year, like I've seen teachers come in and have their yearly review and they're told, like, well, we want to keep you on, but next year you're going to have to volunteer for XYZ. It's like, am I getting a raise? Well, no, we don't have that in the budget. And then of course that's going to cause burnout. Trying to get coaches. I was just talking to another buddy of mine and being a coach, and he told them, like, hey, I have other offers. I'm going to go somewhere else. And they kind of just took it for granted, didn't believe him. So when he leaves, they call him and they're like upset, like, hey, we need you. Like, there's no one to run the program now. And it's like, yeah, I was trying to work with you guys. I didn't really want to leave, but you kind of forced my hand. So of course you're going to take a better opportunity, even if it's moving school districts or whatever. And once you move, they're not going to bump your salary up to cover travel. So, like, if you're not working at the school that you coach at anymore, like, to me, my mind's blown anytime I hear someone say, like, hey, I work at so-and-so school, but I coach. Like, my high school coach, one of them, he coached at a different school, or he taught at a different school, was driving like a half hour, 45 minutes, I don't even know how far, to coach. And to me, I'm like, that's insane. Like, they're not covering the travel for you. And then if they're giving you, like, a hard time, it's almost like not worth the headache anymore. And I think, sadly, the administration at a lot of places, they're old school. That's how they've always done it. People, like, I think a lot of them before now with technology, young people growing up, they don't live where they grew up anymore. And I think a lot of the admins are old school and they just assume that, like, hey, so-and-so is a teacher here, they'll be here forever. And then they're shocked when someone's like, no, there's better opportunities literally 10 minutes down the road, buddy. Like, I don't know what you're talking. Like, that's why some schools, I think they have the culture built in, and it's hard to go ahead and keep that going. At some point, it's going to be like the admin's going to buy in. They're going to pay for so-and-so to be successful. They might have to cut other sports along the way or whatever. That's why I think, like, esports is going to be a thing. I talk about it on the show. It's very easy to get coaches to come in or players to come in, and they're doing like the old school original college football now, where I've talked to a couple programs and said, like, hey, yeah, I'd be interested to help coaching. I really like video games or whatever. I do programming and stuff. And they're always like, yeah, well, we got one of our ex athletes. They're going to just go ahead and take over the team. And it's like, yeah, I understand why you're not paying them. Like, it's like, what, a volunteer thing for them? And then they want to take the next step and they're like, well, how come we're not as big or getting as many sponsorships? It's like, you're not taking it seriously, buddy. You're going to miss out on it. And then it's going to be the same thing. Like, look at college basketball or even college, like, football on, like, a grander scale, because some people would not be able to relate to the high school thing. Like, there's a reason, like, the Michigan has the most wins. Ohio State has, like, one of the top wins. They have the highest winning percentage, I think, right now. Yeah, that's for a reason. They've been on top of football since it began, right? They bought in early, and now they are the blue blood. Same with, like, college basketball. It's hard to just become a new blue blood. Even some of the newer schools like TCU making the jump up to the higher ranks, finally making the playoffs this year, getting a win. Didn't get a national championship. They claimed one back in 1938 or whatever. It's hard to be on that level, right? High school's the same way. You can't choose your athletes. You can't choose your students. And if you don't live in a booming area, you're not going to be able to compete unless you have consistent coaching and just support from everyone. And so it's not a surprise whenever you look at the history of certain schools and every coach has a losing record. It's like, oh, okay, I got it, right? So that's why I talked to some buddies. It's like, I talked to another friend of mine, like, he said, I feel so relieved. Like not having any of the stress of like parents yelling at me all the time. And I'm like, yeah, I never understood why you put up with that. If you're not a parent, you're just like a teacher. You're dealing with all kind of other stuff. And it like the salary at some point, like you have to sit down and look at it and like, I could make more greeting at Walmart and have less stress. Right. So that's my thing where it's like, and now with even minimum wage and stuff going up, they're still not raising coaching salaries to match that.
Well, the funny thing is let me think about it. And I probably held close to 10 years ago. I had a friend that did the math and was going back of what our coaching supplements were when I was an assistant. He's like, a lot of people don't understand. It's not about the money, because when you factor in the season, the off season, summer, like all the extra stuff, the evenings that you do the work, it boils down to about 3 cents an hour is what it did, what our supplement cost back in like 2012, 2011. So, take that for what it's worth. It's not about the money. It's the impact and the ability that you have to change kids' lives. And I'm biased to it because I've had friends over the years say, "Why are you so obsessed with this?" And it's because I'm the beneficiary of it. I'm one of those people that I had a positive experience. I was surrounded by good people. And then as a result, as I've gotten into coaching myself, it's opened doors to meet really successful people and to have opportunities at places that I didn't think originally would be possible,
And that's the one thing too with me. It's like I was successful with sports, helped me out, helped me get going with my like career and everything. And even now you bring it up and everyone instantly talks to you like, oh yeah, you played sports, you did this. I think a lot of people can relate. To me, it's like the same thing when I hear coaches, going back to your point about 3 cents an hour or whatever. When I hear I hear a lot of people complain like, oh, my coach only wants my kid to do baseball year round. It's like realistically, they probably don't, because they're not getting paid the extra. Like they're not getting paid for summer league, buddy. Like they rather have the kids play football or run track or something so that they don't have to spend their time training them. It'd be better for the football coach to be like, hey, football's over. Have fun at basketball, boys. And I know there's a little bit of like overlap there sometimes. And then like track. And then if you had all the coaches, it's kind of like handing them off from football to basketball to either baseball or track. And then the football coach can come in the summer. But a lot of times now it's like, oh no, I need to specialize. I hear people telling me online that I need to specialize. I only want to be a football player. Who's in charge then? It's not like the high schools have trainers that they're paying. The head football coach then has to pick up the slack for if the kid doesn't play other sports, you're going to have 10 kids or so, maybe more, that you all have to go to the weight room with. You have to spend more time around from your family. It's not like the school's going to say, oh, hey, we see you doing like the training job. We're going to pay you like an extra stipend for off-season training. Like, nah, they don't. Why would they even offer that? There's no way they're going to do it. So that's the crazy thing for me. And that's the same thing with like esports. I hear about like they're trying to like finalize it. Like, oh, we'll do certain games here, like other sports where to like get other kids to rotate in. It's like, are you getting other coaches, or is it basically having one babysitter year round? Because that's kind of what the head football coach and maybe the wrestling coach was usually like the weight room babysitters when I was in school, right? They were the guys that were there teaching people to train, but it's hard because one weight program doesn't work for every sport, right? So they have to kind of work together to try to say like, hey, here are some of our cross athletes, and then some that don't play other sports. They can kind of specialize, but I still think they miss out.
Oh, I think in some aspects you're right, but I think one of the points that you're really making here is that when you look at programs and the programs that are really successful, there's consistent carryover between the sports. And every year, I know we talk about it on here because it means something to me, that when you look at the players that are drafted, there's always a couple people that point out how many athletes played multiple sports when they were in high school. Because I think when you look at athletes and just players in general, not specific to football, but the kids that are just athletic, they can be great wrestlers, they can be great basketball players. They're natural when it comes to running and moving. They can just do it. They have that it factor. And it doesn't matter if they're running a football, if they're running down the soccer field, across a lacrosse field, rounding bases in baseball. Like if they have it, they have it. And the more exposure that they have to a variety of sports, the more likely they are of being a better athlete all around.
And I mean, even in college, like I went to a small school, but they asked you to like, oh, you should consider playing other sports as a reserve. And I'm like, now I look back and I'm like, damn, I should have did that. Like, why would you not like open more doors for yourself, you know? And it's like, not everyone has that opportunity to play other sports, even at the high school level. But I think, like, to your point, building on other programs, I think some of the most successful schools, when I'm thinking back growing up, I think a lot of times they had coaching crossover where, hey, maybe the head baseball coach is also an assistant on the football team staff, and maybe he's also an assistant on the basketball team staff, or maybe the basketball coach is an assistant on the football team, where they're getting to know the students, and you're getting some of that crossover training, and you're building the relationships year-round. Because if you have kids coming in and out and you're not at the school, it's hard to build those relationships and keep it going year-round. So I think that's another thing, too, where it's harder to get coaches to buy in for multiple seasons year-round. And yeah, being an assistant in other sports and getting an additional stipend helps. But like some of the ones from my friends I've seen, it's like, that's so low, I could make that like in a week doing anything else, man. And you're spending 3 months, like you said, 3 cents an hour. It's like, it's not going to change. Like it's almost, and they're getting rid of like PE and stuff too at schools. So I don't know how the students are supposed to get any better physically. I think we're going to see like a drop off. We've seen kids get better. They always talk about like the NFL, how like athletes are getting better every year. It's like, no, we're going to see a drop off soon, right? They can't just keep getting better if there's no resources for it, right? At some point, you're going to hit like a plateau. It's just going to happen.
Right.
That's why like some world records are like still there. Like running, like some running world records and like even some swimming ones. It's like, it's going to be hard to beat that because the kids they're not growing up like training or like getting any in shape. I've seen some of the jokes is like some of the things you look at like the young school and it's like, hey, what do they need to do for like the presidential challenge or whatever? And before like you had to run and stuff, it's like they have to walk 20 laps. It's like, walk 20 laps. What the hell? Like, this is an elementary school gym. What are you talking about, buddy? You can walk 20 laps in like 10 minutes. That's like the barometer of fitness for some of these kids. So I think a lot of things like we're just going to be changing for the worse. I think that's maybe me being negative. I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about before we get into?
No.
I did have, because I want to tie this into like the Harbaugh situation, because I felt I was kind of harsh on Harbaugh last week, and probably last year, a couple weeks ago when we were talking about it, because once again, talking to the NFL, and it's the same type of thing where you hear from his camp, it's like, oh, I need Michigan to buy in and be successful to like the NIL era. And then Michigan goes ahead, puts together a 1 more year fund for like 4 athletes that they know are considering coming back. And guess what? They raise a bunch of money and they all come back. Even Blake Corum, Heisman running back contender until he got hurt, definitely would have been a finalist, if not the winner last year, just based on Michigan's team and the success that he had going in to the last couple weeks. And it's like, in years past, that never would have happened. That never would have happened to Michigan. They would have had guys jumping early, going pro. And maybe Harbaugh has a point, but like him being unclear, it's like, to me, maybe last year didn't have the buy-in. Having a president like Santa Ono come in and tweet out like, hey, I'm talking to Harbaugh today. I want him to be the coach. And then in the next day or two, it's done. Right? Like, to me, that's insane because the athletic director, what's he doing? Why is Michigan's athletic director not getting this job done? Like, does he not see that Harbaugh, maybe he does want to stay, and maybe it is grandstanding because he doesn't feel like the athletic director supports him? And to me, it's like, get rid of him. Get a new athletic director. I look back now and I think, like, did that athletic director really crush Michigan sports? Because John Beilein, Michigan's basketball coach, he went to the NBA, and maybe if he had a little bit more buy-in, I know he was pissed about like players leaving for the NBA. I would just imagine, like, I wish, like, what if NIL was around? Could you imagine if they can get 4 football players to come back, including a Heisman guy? They could have got some of their basketball teams where guys are jumping early to come back, right? Because Michigan had a problem where NBA guys were going and ending up in the G League, like not even coming close to making a roster right away. The NIL fund would have helped a team like Michigan with John Beilein. And so maybe the athletic director could have helped him out a little bit more. And then Michigan loses a baseball coach to Clemson. And people are like, oh, Clemson, yeah, that's a much better baseball program. And it's like, okay, maybe that's true. They are in the ACC, but like maybe he's from Clemson. I don't remember the exact situation. But to me, it's like, if you want to be the premier, Michigan was just in the national championship. I don't know the last time Clemson baseball was in the national championship, right? I don't even know if they won a national championship as a baseball team ever. So, like, you can't tell me that Clemson's a better baseball program than Michigan. Michigan has a World Series title. Bakich had Michigan in the championship game. They had a game lead. They end up losing 2-1 to Vanderbilt. How do you know that he couldn't build Michigan into a consistent? I mean, they're in the Big Ten. How come they can't be the Gonzaga of NCAA baseball, right? Where it's like Gonzaga's the only team from the WAC or whatever conference they're in that competes for a national championship, right, in basketball. Michigan is that team for baseball, for college baseball from the Big Ten. Indiana had a couple runs, but I don't think they were even in the finals. And I'm looking it up now. They've had appearances, Clemson has. Clemson hasn't had a World Series appearance since 2010. Michigan was just in the finals a few years ago. The World Series, not appearances, like in the title game. And they don't have a title. Clemson never has had a baseball national championship. Michigan has one. So already one better, Matt. One is better than 0. So you can't tell me if the athletic director didn't throw some more money his way or some support, because I've heard about his low salary. Like, maybe that situation's better. Maybe the softball coach that won a national championship doesn't retire if she has some more support. There's some other ones that, like the hockey situation, maybe that was handled poorly. I don't know now. Now Harbaugh bringing this all to light where if the president has to step in, and I'm glad that he came in and he's all for sports, because maybe he's going to wake a sleeping giant, right? NIL, Michigan, that makes sense to me. And piggybacking off our early topic, getting that support, I still think Harbaugh talking about the NFL every year 100% hurts recruiting. Maybe he can do. I still think I like the logic from his like little press things they were putting out from the football team. Like, oh, hey, we don't really care about top 100 recruits because we've had more success without them. Like, that's awesome. That's basically PR though. Like, that's just something that they're putting together to say like, well, we know recruiting sucks, but maybe we don't need it. Maybe transfer, maybe being one of the top teams in the transfer portal every year would be better because these are recruits that are already trained. They can compete, right? Michigan's been taking transfer guys that have been starters elsewhere. That's the one key component for me that I've noticed. Michigan has been taking starters from other teams and making them play, right? I feel bad. Like, if I have to mention Oki because I've been talking about how he got another chance. He's following Biff Poggi to Charlotte, which is going to be a loss for Bay because having top tier athletes, but that's like one case where he had to go away from Alabama because he wasn't playing, and then Michigan gave him an opportunity to show himself. A lot of other teams, like I see high portal ranks, I look at their players they're bringing in, and they're still kind of ranked on hype instead of actual production. And I look at the the center from Virginia last year. He was an All-American candidate in some of the transfer portal. He was only ranked as a 4-star, and then some guys that never played at all were still ranked as 5 stars ahead of him. Easily the best transfer probably from last year. Like Kenneth Walker from Michigan State, when they got him from Wake Forest the year before, he was kind of the same situation where he was a starter for Wake Forest, goes to Michigan State, balls out, but they're not giving him the starter bump, right? They're like, well, there's guys like, I hate to throw Tate Martell under the bus again, but like he didn't really play ever anywhere. And they, like, to me, he would be a 5-star transfer if he transferred, like if he was a freshman this year, right? Like at some point, you have to have some consistency. And that's kind of off on a recruiting tangent thing. But I think some of like the coaching success stuff, you have to have buy-in from everyone around you. And NIL is going to be a clear line drawn where I know you're a big fan of the Florida Gators, right? Didn't they have issues already with one of the guys they signed, the quarterback that was supposedly offered like $13 million? Check didn't cash, Matt. He's looking to get out of his national letter of intent. I'm going to mix it up. So NLI, right?
Yeah.
Already wants out.
Why would you pay $13 million for a kid who's never played a down? That boggles my mind.
That's why I see the rankings and I'm looking like Michigan's getting a starting lineman from Stanford, getting one from Arizona. It's like these guys are starting already to be added to Michigan's depth from an offensive line that have won the best offensive line award for 2 years in a row. Like that's clear. I'd rather have that than, like you're saying, a guy getting paid $13 million that has never played anywhere. Maybe he is a top 10 recruit or whatever, but okay. I look at the 5-star quarterbacks that have went to Michigan, like there were a lot of busts in there. Did stars matter? Like, no, how many? I think a lot of Michigan's top recruits didn't pan out. Sure, they've had some like Rashawn Gary that did, and our boy Peppers. We talk about him all the time on the show. Like, awesome, panned out. Peoples-Jones, I think, is better so far in the NFL than what he was in Michigan. He had some great celebrations at Michigan where he did the Paul Bunyan. Awesome. So definitely worth it for him to come there.
Did he pull his hamstring when he did it?
Why is he always hurt now?
Lately he's been healthy, but God almighty, every time I turn around, he was pulling a hamstring. He was injured. I was like, I'm tired of hearing him with 17 hyphenated names and couldn't stay healthy.
Well, Devin Bush is going to be the next guy. Steelers won him out after he got injured. It's like, man, he would have been awesome. Like a fast guy. You lose your speed, though. It's just a sad case of like a guy getting hurt, you know? I don't know. I feel like you're going to see some programs buy in, like Georgia's buying in. I keep hearing Alabama's going to bounce back. They haven't really won since Kirby Smart, right? Did they get a national championship since Kirby Smart's been gone?
No.
Maybe they have. I don't know. I don't remember exactly when Kirby Smart left, but like it was around that time. They might have got one right after him, and that's going to be it. So maybe he is like the key piece, and we don't know. So,
but you know, part of it is also you got to have, and you kind of hit on this. The president of Michigan right now is pro athletics. And so it's having the right people in place to push the programming where it needs to be. And Florida State went through some transition as well, and they're in a place now where they have Norvell as a solid coach, and they have the administration supporting the things that he's doing, and they work hand in hand. It's a collaborative effort. I don't think if Michigan's president is pushing the issue, and he's working separately from Harbaugh, I don't know that it's as effective. I think if Norvell's working without the support of the university, I don't know that it's as supportive. It's not moving the program. But when I think you have these programs that are working collaboratively, administration with athletics, I think you're seeing there's a reason that they're successful, because they have these program ideals that are matching the ideals of the school. So the athletics match the institution, and now you have where people want to be a part of it. And I think that's a huge piece that's often left out.
And that's why, even going back, like, what would it be, 30 years or so, like Michigan's won titles in football, hockey, gymnastics, softball, like a ton of different sports, where a lot of schools, like, they seem to be hyper-focused on one sport, right? And a lot of times it's not football. But if you have the administration behind you, now I'm wondering, like, Michigan's been kind of in a slump. Have they been having their hands tied behind their back? Because, like, if they had the old president, there's no way Harbaugh stays. He would have been in the NFL. And last year, I almost wondered before, because that's when Santa came, was this year. So, like, what if he would have took the Vikings job? Maybe the new president's going to change his mind, and maybe he won't dance with the NFL every year now. Get guys coming in, get the support you need, because, like, basketball's the same way. You're either recruiting the top. If you can get them to stay, maybe then you'll have a more consistent program. Because, like, if you have a team that's recruiting top 10, top 20 guys like Michigan can in basketball, and maybe not have them go pro, then you can consistently compete with, like, Kentucky and Duke and UNC, right? Like, could you imagine, like, a more talented Gonzaga that's playing, like, senior players every year? That's the difference. In football, like, next year, Michigan having all these guys come back, they're going to be a very senior team. This year was disappointment losing in the playoffs. Next year, if they lose in the playoffs again, it's going to be an even bigger disappointment because everybody's back, right? If they somehow miss the playoffs, I think it's going to be a disappointing year. I think the Big Ten, they have to almost be disappointed, like, well, Michigan's getting almost everyone back. I think they've only lost like 3 or 4 dudes on each side of the ball. That's it. So it's like, oh, and they're getting all these transfers. Awesome. Ohio State, like, people that thought that CJ Stroud was going to come back, I looked at the math. Wasn't it Ryan Day complaining that the entire roster would cost $13 million? CJ Stroud's signing bonus is going to be at least $20 million. I think Hutchinson made like whatever. There's no way Ohio State was going to pay what he needed to stay. If he was staying, it wasn't because of NIL. And I just didn't think, like, to me, even if it was Michigan's guy that had like a guy that almost beat Georgia and was like 1 point away or a missed field goal away from a national championship, and he's like, I should come back, I would almost say, like, just go pro, buddy. You're don't mess up, because you never know what's going to happen as a quarterback. You don't want to hurt your arm a little bit, then you're going to lose that guaranteed money. NIL will never make up for that. What it does make up for is guys like running backs that are devalued in the NFL that, like, a couple years ago, like, NFL running backs were getting drafted super high. Not so much anymore. So, like, what's the difference? I hear about, like, oh, so-and-so, they're not going to get the like, they're going to get those carries and they're going to lose a year in the NFL. It's like, average running back only lasts 3 years in the NFL. Right? At least, and they're not going to be getting drafted high enough to even make a signing bonus worth outweighing NIL. You might as well play a couple years at college. Michigan has a platoon system with 2 great running backs now, so you're going to eat half the carries and get paid maybe what you're going to get paid in the NFL anyway, and then you'll still get your 3 years in the NFL most likely. Why not stay the extra year? Right? I think Harbaugh can say, like, hey, I've been in the NFL. I know running backs are going to be eaten alive out there. Look at, like, Hassan Haskins from Michigan. Get Derrick Henry's out. Hassan Haskins is just getting beat up because that offense doesn't have anything, right? The Titans, like, what was their offense this year? Derrick Henry up the middle 100 times, so he doesn't play. I watch Haskins get, like, just killed, and I'm, like, feeling bad for the dude. Like, well, if he had NIL, maybe he would have been back in Michigan. I think he was already a senior, though, so did it matter that he was a year older? No, he's still backing up Derrick Henry, right? Still getting crushed whenever he's not in there. Now, maybe if you're in a better situation where you're, like, in a spread offense where the running back's just, like, hanging out, or like Le'Veon Bell type where Ben Roethlisberger's just giving you the keys, you know, maybe it'll go longer term, but it's hard to get a position where the quarterback can keep you healthy. So I want to see more of this. Like I'm 100% pro athlete. I want to see them get paid. And I think we're going to start to see a shift where if you're so-and-so, a starter from like a smaller school, and you're seeing that Michigan's paying top dudes, why would you not grad transfer there? I also don't think it's going to work everywhere, right? Scott Frost at Nebraska, they were all in on him. I don't know what happened because I really didn't follow Nebraska that much, but that was a complete failure, right? So things can go wrong when you're all in on a coach. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't matter. Like Miami, we keep hearing about how they're all in. Win some games, right? You joked with me a couple of days ago or whatever. You're like, oh, Michigan's in a bad spot. They're ranked like third going into the preseason or whatever. That's where Miami was. I'm like, Michigan has a bunch of vets coming back. If they Miami it, then there's other issues, right? Miami should never be ranked in the top anything until they actually win an ACC title, right? I could say the same thing with like Michigan up until like a year or two ago whenever they won the Big Ten. It's like, yeah, you can rank them ahead of Ohio State, but why? Like, why are you ranking them ahead of Ohio State? That makes zero sense. They can't beat them. Now that they beat them 2 times in a row, like, I'm okay. Okay, yeah, if Michigan's ahead of Ohio State next year, new quarterback, there's no way. But, like, honestly, if I told you going into the next year, Ohio State and Penn State both have new quarterbacks, who would you have ranked ahead?
Ohio State.
Yeah, you'd have to have Ohio State. I see people putting Penn State sometimes above Michigan. It's like, what have you seen from Penn State that would say, that's it, they're the best team? It's like, what have they done? They can't beat Michigan or Ohio State in recent years. Like, really? I think they beat Michigan the COVID year. That was their last win against Michigan. When was their last year win against Ohio State? Like 2016? 17? There's no way you put them ahead of Ohio State. You put Michigan, then Ohio State, and you have them like 2 and 3, I think you're fine. Or 3 and 4, wherever you want to put the SEC teams above them. That's fine with me. Like, there's no way I would put Michigan ahead of Georgia. I don't care if they have a new quarterback. They just won back-to-back titles, right? Like, I'm like, all right, I'm fine with that. I'm 100% fine with that. So that's my college thing. I want to see more teams have success because I want to see athletes like get their due. And if schools have to cut sports, it's going to happen. And I hear a lot of complaints from smaller conferences like, well, we can't compete with the Big Ten now. Big Ten's making so much money. And to me, awesome. Then why do you have so many sports? The SEC doesn't have nearly as many sports as the other conferences, but everyone thinks they're the best conference because of football. Right? They're not. The Pac-12 keeps yelling about how they have the most national championships, and no one cares at all. Because they're like, your teams suck in football. Right? I joked last week about LA being Big Ten country. That's true coming up. And so like when the LA schools start to come and they start taking their track national championships with them and everything, then who knows? And the Big Ten will have the most national championships. And really, I keep hearing about, well, the Pac-12 is going to do some merger with the Big 12 and stay relevant. It's like the only thing keeping them relevant is national championships in other sports. Like Michigan's been the only team like competing in water polo with like UCLA and USC and like Stanford. It's like you're taking most of those schools to the Big Ten. How are the Pac-12 schools going to keep competing? Because now you're going to have the same thing in football, like when the Big East dissolved, where you're going to have recruits say like, do I go play at Oregon? Nah. Because like, who are they playing prime time? You're either going to pick USC or UCLA, and if that doesn't work out, then you're going to pick Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State, right? You're most likely going to pick one of the other big schools. And if Notre Dame joins, which I think will happen in a few years, then you're like, oh, choose Notre Dame too. But like, unless Oregon gets into Big Ten, like I don't see them staying able to recruit big time guys. It hasn't started yet. Give it, 2 years? I don't know when that shift happens.
And I'm going to say this for Penn State because we've talked a lot of shit over the years on them, but this has been the issue. They've never had the consistent quarterback play that you need to have to be considered in that top 2 consideration. And, you know, when you go back through the list of quarterbacks who've who've won the national championship over the last 10 years or so, they've had consistent play that you knew what to expect. And granted, Clifford's been there for 16 years. That's kind of what you've gotten out of him, is that he's played well. He's played phenomenal at spurts, but there's also times that he plays like a junior high quarterback, and that's always been that hindrance that Penn State loses a handful of games every year, and if you can't consistently win within your own conference, let alone across the entire conference, like if you can't win in your division, it's tough to lay claim to the conference. And if you can't win your conference, it's tough to say, oh yeah, we're one of the best teams in the nation, when you can easily point and go, you can't even win within the teams in your own league. When you're consistently winning, and that was one of the things that, you look at Ohio State, I gave you so much grief over it, but they were carrying the water. When you looked at the Big Ten, they were the reason that they were qualifying for the playoffs. They were the team that was playing for those BCS games. And if it weren't for them, how easily could it have been that they're the ones that's left out instead of the Pac-12?
Well, that's why the one thing, and that's where I think the Pac-12, they really didn't go in on their brands and try to help them out. The Big Ten did everything they could to help Michigan, but you have a bad coaching hire and you don't get that buy-in. Like Rich Rod never got the buy-in. I still wonder, like, if they did give him the buy-in at Michigan, who's to say that they don't take off Urban Meyer-esque before Urban Meyer at Ohio State, right? You got to have the buy-in. If people don't want to give you recruits because they don't trust you, you're not going to have success. But the Pac-12, it seems like there always seems like they're doing like scheduling and weird things to really like hurt USC. And it's because it's always like, hey, why is USC playing this like weird game at this weird time? And then they get upset and it's like Pack after dark, baby. It's like, who cares? Like, you're only hurting yourself, buddy. Michigan would never agree. Remember when they did the Friday night game, and they said everyone's going to play at least one Friday night game, and then Michigan's like, we're not doing that, and they were like, well, except Michigan, and then Ohio State was like, well, what the hell? We're not doing it either. And then they were like, oh, calm down. Only Michigan and Ohio State get out of it. And then I'm watching like Penn State play Illinois on Friday, and I'm like, just speak up, Penn State. What are you doing? Like, you can't let the two top dogs say, nah, son. And that's why I always joked with you. You were like, well, Michigan's losing. They're no longer the top two. I'm like, look at what's happening in terms of like perception. And it's clear that they are the top two, because Penn State always kind of just seemed to be content with like, hey, we won the Big Ten. Oh, we didn't make the playoffs. That's no big deal, baby. Let's bring back the Rose Bowl. They're like talking like they're Bo Schembechler hyping up the Rose Bowl. It's like, no one cares about the Rose Bowl. What are you guys talking about? You turned over cars and stuff for like Joe Paterno. Turn over cars about getting left out of the playoffs. Like, show some be the next Big Ten, the Big Ten team to take that step. Like, right? Michigan State was in the playoffs. Michigan and Ohio State. I think if you ask the trivia questions like, hey, which Big Ten teams made the playoffs? I think a lot of people would mistakenly guess Penn State, but they haven't. So to me, and I mean, Michigan hasn't up until this year, to your point, like quarterback play, that makes a difference. Because you can get hyped up. I hear a lot of hype about Penn State. Michigan getting Shea Patterson, they also had a lot of hype. Weren't able to get it done. They needed JJ. JJ hurt them in the playoffs. I mean, that's true fact. You can't throw 2 pick sixes in the playoffs. If that doesn't happen, that Michigan most likely wins that game. And then they go to the national championship game. Who knows what happens there? But you need a quarterback that can get it done. I know JJ is most likely going to get it done. He only has that one loss as a starter. So, like, if I'm betting, I don't know what Ohio State's quarterback's going to do. I don't know what Penn State's quarterback's going to do. I've seen a lot of high-hyped quarterbacks, right? A lot of them flake out. So, show me what you can do, Penn State. Step up. Win some games. Hell, win a playoff game before Michigan does. That'd be awesome. That's what makes the SEC great. It's like, hey, they have Georgia winning and Bama winning and Auburn winning and LSU winning. It's like Tennessee. I hear about all this hype about Tennessee's a better program than Michigan. It's like, stop. They can't even win the conference. Like, stop. Wisconsin, I hear about Wisconsin's a better program than Michigan. It's like, no. They had a better run because of the divisions. If you get rid of divisions, will Wisconsin ever be in the title game again? Right?
They may not.
I'm not talking shit on Luke Fickell because I don't know what he's going to do there. But, like, Nebraska can't even compete. And if you're bringing in USC and UCLA, if you're making me bet right now and you're saying what's going to be the top 5 programs in the Big Ten in year 2040, like going back after this new merger, I'm going to say Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Penn State, and I'll honestly probably throw a curveball and say like Iowa. And everyone's going to be like, what the hell? Iowa? It's like, no, they have consistent buy-in. You could say Wisconsin, but I still think like the ghost of Barry Alvarez is still there. Iowa's one with multiple coaches.
Barry Alvarez.
How do you know Kirk Ferentz isn't going to become the Barry Alvarez and just be the AD after? And like they just keep winning, right? It could be Nebraska. Could be Iowa. Could be Wisconsin. I don't think you have a clear-cut 5. Could be UCLA. Hell, Oregon might join the next year and be that number 5 team. I don't know. But I think I guess you could say Michigan State too. I don't want to overlook them because they're clearly spending the money. I just don't know how much further you can get behind Michigan and Ohio State in the new NIL era and compete. Penn State's in. Michigan, Ohio State are in. Now win some games. The expanded playoff, I think, will go a long way for those 3 schools, more so than the Pac-12. Because even if Utah wins, I still think they have to win a national championship to get respect. The Big Ten teams have already won a national championship in the past, and unfortunately, that's what the press likes to look at. They talk about the past all the time, right? I feel like they don't respect TCU at all, even if they have that title from 1938, right?
Well, I mean, and you just said it, 1938. Like, that's kind of a hard sell to say 1938.
Well, actually, I'm looking right now at the list. They're supposed to have 3. I guess one. I know they claim 2, 35 and 38. And then 2010 they didn't claim. But like we've always talked about, claim it. Could you imagine if they were like, hey, last time TCU won was 2010? No one would overlook them. They would just be like, oh, they won one more recently than Michigan. Awesome. Like, they have the same amount as Clemson. Like, people are joking about like Clemson stealing their guys and TCU is like a minor league program for Clemson. It's like, they're basically the same level, guys. TCU just hasn't claimed their 3rd title. Just claim it. Claim it. Like, do you need to get me on the phone? Like Iowa, I don't even know if they have a consensus one. They have 5 they can claim. Just claim them. Say, the new Big Ten, we have 5 natties, baby, and we're coming for it. Kirk Ferentz, they have they make a state holiday, Kirk Ferentz Day, and Hayden Fry Day, and then they just have like 5 national championships and they celebrate it with because they like, I always see the articles about the best college football traditions, and yeah, they do the hospital way for the children's hospital, which is awesome. What kind of tradition is that? It's like 2 years old or 3 years old, right? They never did that in the past. So to me, why not claim the natties and talk about it too? If you can start a new tradition in 1 year, you can claim past natties. Let's see. Anything else you have on college before I go forward? I think we've been way long. This has been like a backwards show, but had a coaching change to talk about.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything additional on the college front.
All right, let's get into the NFL. So my man Tom Brady, I have to talk about him first. Out of it, I was waiting for the Bucs to put it together. I just thought that they were going to be able to put it together, and they weren't able to do it. And now I look around, and it's almost like, does he give it another run? And I have to compare it to Aaron Rodgers, because I know Aaron Rodgers is nowhere near decorated as Tom Brady. If people talking about like Aaron Rodgers was like, him leaving is going to be worse than Tom Brady leaving, it's like, no, Tom Brady's the best. Aaron Rodgers isn't even half the quarterback that Tom Brady is. And I'm putting that on the podcast. It's almost like, looking back now at like Peyton Manning, like, yeah, he was good. And I like the Manning cast. I think it's funny, him and Eli. But like, you can't honestly say that like it's a debate between him and Brady anymore. Like, you don't try to make it seem like, oh, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady leaving, it's like 2 of the best quarterbacks of all time. Like, Aaron Rodgers has 1 title. If Patrick Mahomes does the same thing, only wins 1 title, I think it kind of shambles his career, right? Remember, Dan Marino made that one Super Bowl early in his career, didn't win it, and then never made it back, right?
Right.
That could be Mahomes. We don't know. I mean, Kansas City has been loaded. I look at the quarterbacks now, and everyone's younger. I think all the playoff quarterbacks left are under 30. And you still have Joe Burrow, which has the it factor in terms of like clutchness, right? I think everyone's seen that. You have a team like the 49ers now that just seem like they're so loaded that it doesn't matter if their quarterback's making bad throws, right? The guys are just going to be there for Purdy to make. I saw someone doing a film breakdown of like Purdy making these awesome throws, and they were all awful throws. And I thought, who's doing this film? Like his guy was running down the sideline on one of them, and he led him to the middle, and he almost got killed. And it's like, that's a bad throw, buddy. Why? And it was like NFL like highlights or something, and I was like, why are you highlighting this? Like, that's a poor throw. Like, yeah, the guy made the catch, but if he leaves him on the sideline, that's an easy walk-in touchdown. But, like, maybe it's starting to click for some of these guys. Like Trevor Lawrence has all the stuff. Looked like they were dead in the water. He played like shit. Could you imagine how many not rookie quarterbacks, but, like, first-time playoff quarterbacks played like shit and never had the chance to come back and throw 4 touchdowns like Trevor Lawrence did and win? Like, Lamar Jackson still doesn't have a playoff win. He's being hyped up as coming back. Daniel Jones has been playing well. I thought the Vikings were a fraud. I think I picked the Vikings because I wasn't sure on the Giants, but win next week and we're talking. We're talking Giants and we're saying maybe Daniel Jones is the guy. I never even mentioned him on the show. I don't know. Josh Allen played like crap. The Dolphins almost beat him. And I told you, like, Steelers could have won that game, Matt. The Dolphins almost won it without a quarterback. You said, oh, the Steelers are going to get killed. The Bills didn't look good at all. The Bills should have lost that game.
No, but put it into perspective. How many turnovers did Josh Allen have? He had a fumble. He had two interceptions in that first half that kept Miami in the game. And easy to say, oh, erase turnovers, but I mean, realistically, take those turnovers off the table. They blow them out by like 60 points.
That's the exact argument I made for Michigan, Matt, in the playoffs. Do you think it makes people feel better?
Just like the Dolphins, they lost.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you give the Steelers that many turnovers, because like Josh Allen, is he even going to win a Super Bowl? Like you said, you can't come in and make a ton of mistakes. Like I talked about Trevor Lawrence, he made all those mistakes and came back. That was his first appearance. Josh Allen's been making playoff runs. He needs to take that push to the next level. I don't know the age. I think they're probably around the same, right? Did I send you the screenshot of the ages?
I don't remember.
I don't think I did. I was trying to see if I could find it. But that's the one thing where it's like, okay, what's going to be the next step? You're talking about the changing of guard in the NFL playoffs, but it's like someone has to win. Someone has to be able to take that next step. So it's like, why don't they just show me a chart? Oh, here we go. Oh, no, that was from 1985. I don't give a shit about that. Like, they had a paragraph for each quarterback. It's like, buddy, I don't need to see a paragraph of the quarterback. I want to see the guys that are left. So Trevor Lawrence is the same as Brock Purdy at 23. All right. Jalen Hurts is 24. Daniel Jones is 25. Burrow is 26. Josh Allen's 26. Mahomes is 27. And then Dak Prescott's 29. Like, to me, Dak, I know he suffered injuries or whatever. I would almost feel like the Cowboys, if they can't get it done this year, the NFC seems to be kind of wide open just because of the 49ers quarterback situation. And I've seen some of the bad throws. It's almost like the Trey Lance one when I told you like last year, I know I talked about it on the show, where it's like his highlight was like a broken coverage pass to a wide open guy. I'm like, if that's the best throw that he's made, he's not going to be good this year. Right? If you're giving me preseason highlights of the dude and his only one good throw is a wide open guy, that he had to slow down to make the catch and then dust everybody. Like that's not a good sign. And I see Purdy doing the same thing where it's like they're trying to make a highlight of a bunch of bad throws. And it's like, that's not going to be good if they face a good defense. Nothing against the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks had a chance. I think they were either winning or down only 3 at halftime. And it was kind of like they just gave out. They couldn't host up. But Mahomes is right there. He's already 27. He's won what? 1 ring? Like if Lawrence comes through and wins one, like on a whim, like we've seen wildcard teams make the championship. Or hell, if Purdy does it, Purdy wins 2.
If Purdy wins 1, he may be one of the most decorated quarterbacks just because he was drafted as Mr. Irrelevant.
You think that would go in his title? They would say,
yeah.
World Series, whatever time, World Series championship, 0-time Pro Bowler, Mr. Relevant. And like
yes, 100%. They're still talking about Jabril Peppers not being able to play in the Orange Bowl. Like 100%, they would play that.
I know you love Peppers just as much as I do. Could you imagine Peppers on Michigan's team this year? Good Lord, Matt. Good Lord. Wouldn't even matter if they lost to TCU.
Well, he probably wouldn't have played versus TCU.
Well, we talked about the NIL era, and I told you there were some weird sit-outs for Michigan in the past. What if the guys sit out? Like, what if it was a playoff that year, and Michigan was in it, like the expanded 12-round playoff? Does Peppers play? And do they get a couple of wins and build the program earlier? That's where I think Penn State hasn't been able to make that jump. Circling back, them in Wisconsin, like, yeah, they've had great years. They never had the chance for postseason success. Only Ohio State was getting blown out in national championship games. Like they never gave,
because nobody else could beat them in the conference. That was what was so frustrating, is that Ohio State was getting smoked, but it was like, but they're blowing everybody else out by 40, 50 points.
I think it came down to, though, the recruiting. I think that's where some of the Big Ten teams like Wisconsin and Iowa, like Iowa and Michigan State are the only teams that like recruit well enough to even like get in. Because like I was looking back through, Wisconsin had titles for the Big Ten in 2010, 2011, and 2012. They didn't get a chance to play for a title. Like they had some of the records. They beat TCU that one year, and it was kind of like, well, we don't think these teams are actually good enough, so we'll make them play each other, right? Was it 2010 where TCU beat them? And then, like I said, TCU can claim it, but it's almost like, all right, now you're coming in, you don't have a chance. And that's why I said, like, they never were able to build on it. They're not going to be able to build on it now. Because how are they going to play in the title game? It's going to be like the East wins every year. Now the East doesn't even have to play them. They're just going to play each other for playoff seeding, I guess. That's why I don't want an actual pure playoff, like a championship bracket. I don't want 1 versus 2, 3 versus 4. I want it kind of to be aligned differently. Like, what if a 4-seed Wisconsin played a number 1 seed Michigan, and they both have like 11 wins or whatever? Wisconsin knocks them off. They could get in the playoffs then in an expanded format. But let's get back to the NFL. I could throw some other college experience. We're going to be off season soon, so I will be throwing some stuff together. But the young quarterbacks, like I was saying, Tom Brady's out. Aaron Rodgers might be done. Matthew Stafford might be done. You're seeing a lot of older quarterbacks just leave. I don't even know, like, if the 49ers, if Purdy gets them to the Super Bowl, can they just bring in Tom Brady for 1 year? Right? Because it seems to be Tom Brady's going to get a chance somewhere next year if he wants it. The leading teams seem to be the 49ers and the Raiders. I think Tom Brady would 100% win a Super Bowl this year with the 49ers. That's a done deal to me. It wouldn't even be close. Like, it wouldn't even matter if they played Mahomes. They would beat him.
Oh, that's a bold statement.
The defense is so good, Matt. Tom Brady has guys that are open. Like Mike Evans last night during the comeback, wide open, dropped another touchdown. Like, that has to be frustrating for Tom. He short-armed it. And I know it was a stretch. All you have to do is dink and dunk. Remember Peyton Manning dinking and dunking the Broncos to the Super Bowl?
But I think when you look at the 49ers, they're built differently, and they're built around a quarterback that can run the boot game, and Brady can't.
I don't think they are, though. Garoppolo's not really running the boot game, is he? I think it changed with McCaffrey. I think with the team, I don't know if everyone's coming back, though.
That's the Shanahan offense, though, because Matt Ryan ran it, and Garoppolo ran it, and Purdy ran it. It's just they need that younger quarterback that can run the stretch zone and can run the boot game off of it. And when you have the backs like McCaffrey, it makes the offense go because you can run. It's so run heavy that then it opens up the tight end crossing. And, for as much shit as you've talked over the years about the wing tee, like it has a lot of those principles that you run.
Matt,
and then when everyone overcommits to it, then you pop them over the top.
I don't bring up the wing tee because no one even talks about it these days.
Blow it out your ass.
It's not 1958. What are you talking about?
Fucking hate you.
Didn't Iowa win it with wing tee at one national championship, Matt? You should be preaching that every year. You should be sending them letters to claim that natty so that they can put it on the Big Ten list.
And they should. Everyone should claim it. If you win it, claim it.
That's what I said. I saw a list of it was like undefeated national championships from the past 20 or 30 years or whatever. Because there haven't been that many. They didn't have USCF on it. And I was like, they did win a national championship. They can claim it. It's in the NCAA record books. What are you guys doing? Who fact-checked this? But I think Tom Brady coming in, they would shift the offense a little bit because he's old. But I almost wonder, do you take the chance? I don't know how many of the years these guys are locked up, though. Because, we can keep going with Purdy and hope that he wins, because I keep hearing comparisons of, Tom Brady was young when he won with the Patriots and didn't really do much. That's kind of what the 49ers are doing right now. Just don't do too much, and you'll win. But if you have a chance at Tom Brady, do you pass it up? Because, who would have been quarterbacking back then? If the Patriots had a chance of, Brett Favre late in his career when Tom Brady was the quarterback, I guarantee they would have said, let's give Brett Favre a run, Drew Bledsoe went out. We're not choosing 6th round Tom Brady over Brett Favre. They just weren't going to do that. But
they might have.
Nah, who knows? But that's the other thing too with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they give Aaron Rodgers a run. He can still bootleg it out. He's not 100 years old yet. And if he goes to the 49ers and wins the Super Bowl, that kind of saves some of his legacy, though, about being a loser, right?
Look, he just needs to just cut his hair and just ride off into the sunset. You don't need to have long hair and be a hippie. Just grow up and accept that you're old and quit being a hippie and just go.
Bro, I have long hair. It's what manly men do.
Take the hint, you hobo.
Me, Trevor Lawrence, baby. Did you see the thing with they compared Trevor Lawrence and Herbert's long hair? I was like, I'm on the right side of history here, Matt. It's okay if you can't grow long hair. Just shave it off like Michael Jordan. You can have 2 championship type looks, Matt. Michael Jordan knew when it was time to let go of the hair. He's like, he's not getting plugs like LeBron, right? Which people can't. You can't even say oh, LeBron's not. He didn't get plugs. It's look at where he used to wear his headband in the mid or late 2000s, man. His hairband just didn't miraculously grow hair, right? And Michael Jordan knew. He's when he got that, I'm shaving that off, baby. And that's going to be my look. Trevor Lawrence has the long hair. If he starts going bald, if he has a skullet, and when he's 39 playing in the NFL, I'll say come on, buddy, let's get rid of that. But maybe he'll keep it his entire career. I don't know. We'll see. I hope Lawrence wins it. I know he kind of almost snubbed me in the playoffs for fantasy, but Eckler now gets a couple weeks extra rest, right? Ready for a repeat in fantasy for me next year. I'm really excited about that. I was gonna have to tweet at him and say how you feeling, man? Should I use my keeper on you, or you beat up from this playoff run? But now I don't have to worry about that. I'm sure he'll be fine. Unless
And also, I don't think that he would appreciate you tweeting him after that.
maybe he will. Maybe we'll become best friends. He'll come on the show. We don't know. Man, you don't know what the future holds.
I don't.
Maybe like Trevor Lawrence, he was at a Waffle House. Now it makes me want to go to Jacksonville Waffle House next time I'm down there. Maybe I'll see him. Let's see. Yeah, what do you got prediction wise? Let's start to wrap up the show. The division round. We'll start with the Jags and Chiefs. Obviously, I don't even know what I picked last week, but I would love to see Jacksonville win. I think the Chiefs are going to win. I think Mahomes has to win the Super Bowl now with this young crop of quarterbacks. If you want to be the premier young quarterback, I don't care about stats. You can be Peyton Manning all the time, but you have to actually win the Super Bowl. That's what it reminds me of. Now's a chance for either Mahomes to define his legacy. He should be the favorite this year with the teams that are left. If he can't get it done and he lets another young quarterback start to rack up Super Bowl wins, then that's going to be an issue for his longevity. So I'm saying Chiefs here. What do you got?
I'm just pulling for the Jags. I want to see the Jags pull this win off.
It would be awesome.
Because I applaud what Peterson did after watching Urban Meyer just absolutely suck it up, and I think it's awesome.
Hey, I do like Peterson. I thought he got the raw deal in Philly. They made him get rid of Nick Foles when he was good, right? They made him keep Wentz. That was basically screwing him out of his career. So now he has a chance with a good quarterback to rebuild it, and he's giving him confidence. Trevor Lawrence, any other quarterback would have thrown all those interceptions and gave up at halftime, right? He didn't.
Not Trevor Lawrence. He was like, you know what? I don't even get to throw at Clemson. I just had to run the ball, so I'm just going to keep throwing.
And now he could become the guy. If they win, I would say they you can't really make them like the longest, like the worst odds as a favorite. Then if they beat the Chiefs, are the Bengals and Bills that much better? Like, let's go to that game. Bengals struggled with the Ravens, and if it wasn't for that fumble, the Bengals would have been eliminated, right? So now they're playing the Bills. Also, that I talked about, Josh Allen's been playing so bad. It's a remake of the game that was canceled. So it's almost like a loser's bowl. I would say whoever wins this game has a chance to just lose to the Chiefs or Jags winner.
Wow.
So I don't think either of these teams have a chance. I think that's it. I think the Bills' heartbreak continues, and I got the Bengals in this one. What do you think? I know the Bills are the favorites, but they look bad.
Jump through the table. Jump through the table. I'm going with the Bills.
No, I'm thinking Bengals Chiefs. I would rather see. Wasn't it a repeat of like the last year or the year before? I think that's going to be the premier matchup. We're going to see a couple of in a row. Next one, Giants and Eagles. I got to go with the Eagles. I know I'm not a big Philly guy, but I like Hurts and I like Devonta Smith. He did well by me this year, so I'm pulling for him to get a Super Bowl title. What do you got?
I'm going to buck what my initial gut feeling is here, and I'm going to go with the Giants.
Why? I feel like a lot of people are pushing for the Giants.
Just because I hate the Giants. That's the only reason that there's nothing about them that's entertaining. And other than the fact that they have that great kicker from Florida State, Graham Gano, there's nothing about the Giants that I find entertaining.
The Giants,
they'll make their field goals and their extra points.
That tie game, I think that they were in, kept the Lions out of the playoffs. So them getting a playoff win, I think, has to hurt even more. And the Eagles, I think they're just getting underrated. It's like, why? Is Hurts back? Like, he's been, even with if Minshew has to play. Like, I think the Eagles are the better team. They've showed it all year. And I hope the Eagles play with the chip on their shoulder, because it really should be the Eagles-Niners, and I think we should get Bengals-Chiefs. I would have said the Bills coming in, but the Bills seem to be falling apart. So what I would love to see, Eagles-Niners and Jags-Bengals.
But this is what I'm thinking, is that I've watched enough Penguins hockey over the years that when Sidney Crosby gets hurt, And then they're like, "Oh yeah, we're going to play fine without him." And then he comes back. And it's like, "Oh yeah, he'll win it for us. We're not going to play as hard." And I feel like that's what's going to happen to Philly. That like, oh yeah, we've been winning with Gardner Minshew. We're definitely going to win this one. Now that our starting quarterback and captain is back, and then he just lays an egg.
I think it's the opposite. I think the Giants have been like celebrating and talking a lot of trash and like doing like weird dances and like dancing on the Vikings logo and doing like the snow angel while that dude was hurt. Was it Nick Foles, my guy? I can't remember who was hurt, but it's like
yeah,
the Giants are acting like a bunch of assholes. And they disrespect my man Eli Manning all the time when he should be Hall of Fame quarterback. They don't even like talk about him as a Giants QB. And they're like, well, the Giants team's like Michael Strahan was the leader of that team, not Eli. And like, it's like, what are you guys doing? Like, celebrate your guys. It would be like if the Steelers would be like, Terry Bradshaw, yeah, he is garbage. Luckily we had Franco Harris, man. Like, yeah, he did win 4 Super Bowls, but he was not good. That's kind of like what the Giants talk about, like with Eli Manning, which I think is like a slap in the face. But that's why I kind of don't like the Giants either. I really don't care. But I want the Eagles to win. And on the same note, for the Cowboys-Niners game, I don't want the Cowboys to win just because they always get talked about like how they're long-suffering and like other teams can't even make the playoffs, man. Just because the Cowboys are choking in the playoffs. They had the guy miss so many field goals, and I thought, this is going to be so awesome when Tom Brady ties it like 24-24 because the Cowboys had 4 touchdowns and 4 missed field goals, and Tom Brady's able to get it. Now, it didn't happen, so I was disappointed with that. But that's what I'm thinking. The Niners are going to win this one. Niners, Eagles, Chiefs, Bengals, unfortunately. So who do you got, Cowboys, Niners?
I'm going to go with the Niners here.
That's who I have. I think, unfortunately, I want to say the Niners, like, watch them beat the Eagles too. And then, like I said, they're going to get to the Super Bowl, and you're going to get the deer in headlights look, and they're going to get railroaded. That's what I think is going to happen. And I hope it's not the Chiefs. But we'll see. Anything else you have for the NFL?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Thanks for listening to the show. Like I said, we're getting a big increase, so thanks for everyone. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends. Do you have anything for the final bell, Matt?
Negative.
I don't really have anything either. I know this is like the best time of the year where we get football. Unfortunately, though, every week we get 1 less game or 2 less games or whatever. They like cut in half. So we're going to be down to 2 next week. At least we got Saturday, Sunday. I'm hoping that they're good games. And we'll be back next week. So make sure you subscribe, tell your friends, and we will see you next week.